Danielle Brand wrote Weed Mom in December 2020, published by Ulysses Press. I've been following Danielle for a few months now on Instagram. She is a deeply loving mom, a yogi. She's really cute, and she flew into New York all the way from Boise, Idaho, to talk to us today. I mean, like, a day in mom life without doing mom life is a long time.
This is the first time I've ever left my husband alone with the kids when there wasn't like a mother-in-law there to help.
Wow.
Or my mom or somebody.
How old are the kids?
Well, now they're 9 and almost 12.
Okay.
So.
And it's the first time you're leaving him?
It's the first time.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean, leaving them, well, my husband, Avi, had to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name's Avi.
Uh-huh.
Tell me where you live.
Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. Like a nice Jewish family in Boise, Idaho. What's that about?
Well, we were part
Maybe
of that.
Maybe you're not
like,
that nice,
flight
actually.
From California.
I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah, I know we're not that nice.
Yeah,
just kidding. So we were part of that like flight from California that's been happening for the last couple of years, and we were living in San Diego. Lived in DC before that, so we've definitely moved around. But San Diego is a great place to start writing about weed and experimenting with weed. And then we moved to
smoking weed.
Yeah. And then, but Boise is, Idaho is prohibition total. There's no cannabis except for
no cannabis. What does that mean for you as the weed mom? What does this mean?
It means that I try to find an interesting line. So I'm
a legal line. So
I'm very public on the internet. I'm not very public in my personal life.
What does that mean, like at school, pick up and drop off? Well,
we've been there in the pandemic, so everything's been odd and weird, and there's just been less parental interaction and all that. So I know it's such a funny space. I usually, when I meet someone, I will feel them out a little bit. Like a new one of my kids' new friends' parents or something. I will take like 20 minutes to get to know them before I say, "Oh yeah, I write about weed."
And that's what you write about primarily beyond your book.
It is,
which came out in December 2020. Congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Coming up on that year.
So cool.
Yeah. So I was writing about cannabis and parenting simultaneously, and then occasionally I would get this crossover stories like how to talk to your kids about cannabis, that kind of thing. And as I became known as this Canamom sort of authority, I guess, in my community, women started coming to me. How do I shop at the dispensary? I don't know, the first thing about that space, or how do I use CBD for anxiety? All these sorts of questions. And I thought, I'm actually well positioned to answer this now.
Wow. Yeah. Does it take bravery, or does it just seem like that from where I'm sitting? That it seems like it must be like a courageous act to say, like, I have to suss people out before telling them what I do for a living, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting place to be in, and I didn't expect to be there because I didn't have a book deal when I moved to Boise, Idaho.
Wow.
I was just, a little weed writer doing all my digital stuff, and then I got the book deal and decided, okay, let's go for it. It's now or never, and we live in Boise, but everything's changing, and we're moving toward more access, more openness. It's happening. So now I feel like I'm on the front line again. Like in San Diego, I was like, oh, wow, this wave is happening. This is cool. Look all around. And then, now I'm like, oof, I'm on the front.
But it must feel important that you're on the front, right? Like it must feel pressing to you that you get the word out, right?
It is. Well, to me, reducing the stigma is a huge part of it. There's just so much that remains. Have you experienced that?
Well, I don't smoke weed.
You don't smoke weed?
You know what? The reason why I found you is because I love microdosing with psilocybin.
Mm-hmm.
I find it really supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really special and subperceptual, and the fact that like Zoloft can be legal and psilocybin is yet to be is so like what? Like how?
It really is a travesty. I love psilocybin too.
Yeah. And so, I haven't seen so many accounts on Instagram around the topic, but there you were. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Somehow they found me finding you, and here we are. And I'm so grateful for it. Also because this chick over here loves weed.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and there is a stigma. I mean, part of the stigma is that it's illegal, or that it was for a long time. I noticed in your last post that you said that the war on drugs is basically to keep minority communities in their place, quote unquote, down.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, the history of the war on drugs, first of all, if you look at cannabis prohibition in the 1930s, it was very much about xenophobia and racism. There were Mexican migrants coming from the South to the Southwest states and bringing with them the custom of cultivating and consuming cannabis as like a way to help with physical pain, ease the burden of labor, that sort of thing.
Oh my God, ease the burden of labor!
Right? Oh, yeah.
What?
Well, physical labor and, I mean, I don't know about childbirth, but
that
would be
just
cool.
labor as in work. Okay,
as in
sorry.
Work. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting. Some people use it that way today. It's very fringe.
Okay.
But, so at that time, there was a lot of xenophobic rhetoric, which we can relate to today. And there was a smear campaign that equated cannabis with Mexicans, with undesirables, with also, and then it caught on in the jazz community. So then it was considered a black and brown people's drug, basically, and highly stigmatized, highly penalized. Even though we all know that cannabis is less harmful than so many other things, including legal things, including many pharmaceuticals, including alcohol.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't even really. The truth is that I don't smoke pot. It never really agreed with me as other plant medicines have, but like it just seems so bizarre that we would be like, doling out Adderall and not actual plants. Like, what is happening? So no, I haven't experienced the stigma myself, but even just hearing you, this like amazing light-filled human, say like I have to feel someone out before I tell them what I do for a living, and what I do for a living is actually helping other mothers be better mothers. I mean,
yes,
really.
Absolutely. I hear that like literally every day, either on Instagram or Facebook, or somebody just reaches out to me and says, I'm a better parent because I microdose with cannabis at the right moments, right dose, right, product for you. There's like a lot of things to consider, obviously, and it's not while driving or rock climbing, I say. But
Right, yeah.
But, right moments, right time, right product and dose, it can really change people's perspective, and especially parents of little kids.
Really? Tell me. I have little kids.
Yeah, I know. So a lot of moms tell me that they get more present and more creative, and they're less obsessed with their agenda and their to-do list, and can like sit on the floor and play blocks or do the things that their kids want them to do with more joy, with more actual joy, instead of, I need to play with my kid now.
Well, it can really feel, with full transparency, when you're on the floor with a 1 or 2 year old and you have like emails to get to, or you have to pee, or you just don't want to be there anymore, it could really feel like you're trapped.
Yeah,
it
can be intense.
And I mean, and when you enjoy it, geez, that's so cool. When you could be in the flow with a child, when you can really access your inner child, or even just like your own flow state.
Exactly.
Alongside your own little miracle human. It's really exciting. So whatever gets you there, that's my thing. Like whatever gets you there.
I see it as a tool. Like one of the ways that I get there is meditation, yoga. I was a yoga teacher for about 15 years. I taught in around Capitol Hill in DC and really enjoyed that life for a while. And I'm not teaching at the moment, but it's a huge part of my life. And I think that any way that we can incorporate more mindfulness, more ritual into our lives, it just helps us be better parents. And so for me, yoga is a tool, meditation's a tool, cannabis is definitely a tool.
Yeah, like how do you use it?
How do I use cannabis?
Yeah.
Well, let me count the ways. Eat it, smoke it, rub it on.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool.
Drink it. Okay, so I love CBD tinctures for kind of that like baseline calm. That I just feel like if I have it regularly in my system, it nourishes my endocannabinoid system, which we all have. We have a system that interacts specifically with cannabis and endogenous cannabinoids that we create ourselves. Crazy.
So crazy. I only know about this from my deep dive into yours and some other Canna moms accounts. Like you're in conversation quite a lot also, which is really cool. It's a nice community.
It is.
But I've never heard that before. But you know what I have heard is like moms just like drinking themselves into, mommy juice.
Yeah. It's wine o'clock.
Yeah, and like apparently there are no receptors in your body that are like, yeah, alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. Alcohol is toxic. It's literally toxic to so many of our organ systems, whereas cannabis nourishes our endocannabinoid system, again, in the right amounts. Like you can overdo it, you can take the wrong dose, wrong product, all that stuff, but in the right amounts, it actually helps your body maintain homeostasis. So eating, sleeping, sex drive, like all those sort of homeostatic functions, the endocannabinoid system has a role in.
Have you found that in the pandemic, people are more open to this type of medicine?
I do.
Okay.
And I should continue that. Yes, I also smoke weed. I love to smoke weed.
Great.
I can get it legally. I just have to drive.
Okay.
Yeah, because I fully support the legalized market. I think that whenever possible, I encourage women to support the legal market. The taxes are higher, it costs a bit more, but you know that it's clean, you know that it's been tested, especially in California. State by state, it varies a little bit, but especially in California, and I think New York is going to be great on that too. You know that it's free from fungi and molds and weird pesticides that they used to use in the in the underground days, and that is still used on the legacy market in some cases. So. Yeah, legal weed. I love to smoke weed. I love to take tinctures. I rub it on my body whenever I have aches and pains and soreness. There are cannabis suppository lubes.
Yeah. Okay. Cannabis lubes.
Yes.
We're on that.
Brand.
Euphoria. I use that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's really fun stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. So,
but what's the suppository?
So suppositories are meant for symptom relief, like premenstrual, perimenopause, all that stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
And it can be THC, CBD. There are other cannabinoids too that we're learning about. It's not just a THC CBD game anymore. There's like all kinds of other cannabinoids we're getting more research and more anecdotal evidence on. So people are using CBN and CBG and THCV and all like alphabet soup.
Why do you believe there is such a lack of, research around the topic?
Yeah, that is a great question. So research for a long time that any research on cannabis was looking for harm, and they weren't going to do research on pregnant women because there's no ethical way to say, like, here, take this weed while you're pregnant, we'll see what happens. Right. It can only be observational studies, so people who are already self-reporting use of cannabis. And it's hard to parse out that data because they didn't, the researchers don't always collect other data. Like, are they using tobacco too? Are they using alcohol too? What is the family situation? Are there other factors contributing? So it's really hard to parse out like the actual effects of cannabis on pregnancy and for breastfeeding babies. Now the rules are starting to loosen up a little bit more, so more research is happening, and there are observational studies that I know of going on specifically pregnancy. But we're still in kind of a desert when it comes to this stuff.
Did you use it during pregnancy?
No, I didn't. It wasn't a part of my life until later.
When did you?
Yeah.
What? How did you get reintroduced to weed?
Yeah. So I tell the story in chapter 1 of my unusual cannabis love story.
Yay, let's do it. I can't wait.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Hawaii, and there's definitely weed there. But it wasn't my thing. I didn't understand it. And that's why I think maybe not to push drugs on you, but I think that if you try it again in the legal marketplace, you might have a different experience because a lot of people didn't understand it or didn't, have the information to consume in a way that helped them really promote their own health, right? So, I didn't like it. Then I met and married a stoner.
Avi.
Avi. In my 20s, and I was just like, okay, that's part of who he is. He's creative, he's smart, he's fun. That's great, but that's not my thing still.
What does he do?
He's
just out of curiosity.
Well, he's a project manager, but an aspiring screenwriter, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he's working on it. And so for a while, I was judgmental about his use because it would kind of get in the way sometimes of my sense of intimacy with him or, his work progression, all that stuff. I have a whole chapter in the book on what can go wrong because I want to cover the bases, you know?
Thanks.
And the fact is that you can overuse cannabis. I think that it's harder to overuse cannabis than a lot of other things, but you can still do it, you know? We can overuse and abuse anything. So because of that, I was judgy about his use. He kind of started hiding it from me, and we had this weird dynamic for a little while. Then he gave it up altogether. Around the time that I got into freelance writing and was getting cannabis assignments, feeling very puzzled about that process because I was like, wait, that's not part of our lives now, and now it is. The thing is, I was introduced to cannabis from this intellectual perspective where I legit fell in love with it. It is so interesting, you know, bridging science, wellness, policy, social justice, business, you know, all these different
and
areas.
now motherhood. And interpersonal relationships and
Totally. So from an intellectual, I literally started writing about cannabis before I tried the adult use market, before I, you know, dove in or was a canna mom myself. And when I was interviewing people for these pieces that I was writing, I was finding out, wow, like women and moms are using this for sleep, for mood, for better sex, for, you know, minor pain relief, things like that. And I was like, oh, I could use those things. It's like, I can definitely use those things too. So I took this really, you know, small hit from a vape pen that I got in the store that I was really nervous about buying, and got on my yoga mat and really just felt what it was about in my body. I was like, what is this? I have to find out for myself. So, and I had a beautiful experience. It's like at once embodied and transcendent, I would say, where I felt literally in the flow of yoga the way that I always strive for. And I realized this is a wellness tool. This is something that I've been missing out on. I can incorporate this in a, you know, in a mindful way and not a bong rips on the couch all day way.
Unless, you know, you want to sometimes.
Yeah, unless you want to sometimes. I like a good bong rip. I can't believe I'm saying that because that was so not my vibe for a long, long time. But damn, I do.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. How do you explain that to your kids? Like, walk us through this, because they're 12, you said, and 8?
Almost 12 and just turned 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So I started talking to my kids a few years ago because I was writing more and more, and because I was like, well, if their friends' parents ever Google me,
right,
0.3 seconds between my name and cannabis. So I wanted to get out ahead of that conversation a little bit. And we were still living in California, so I wasn't afraid of legal repercussions so much. But we started talking about how it's a plant, and I showed them pictures of the plant growing. I showed them actual, you know, flower, actual bud, because it's not going to do anything to them, you know,
right.
It's just a plant. There's actually a children's book called It's Just a Plant.
That's awesome.
I talked about how some adults use it for medicine, some adults use it for, you know, fun and relaxation, and that it's not good for young brains, and that if they were to eat
It's not.
No. So if they were to eat an edible, for instance, I mean, they would feel sick, and also it isn't good for the developmental processes, basically. The research we have right now says that around 20 to 25 years of age, when the prefrontal cortex stops developing, is probably a good time to introduce if you're going to, but not necessarily prior. That's a bit late and maybe not realistic for everybody out there,
right,
but just to keep in mind that, you know, brains are still under development until that time. So I tell them, you know, don't consume it, don't use it. I keep my stash locked. I definitely have always padlocked things, not because I am afraid that my kids would actually get into anything, but just I want to be 100% safe. And now that they're a bit older, I say when your friends start talking about it, when you start getting exposed, you know, to talk about cannabis in other spots, talk to me, because I know what's
way
right.
more. I know way more than Jakey. All right.
Exactly. Yeah, talk to me first. I will give you the real info. And I do talk also about the drug war, and that it was racist. It is racist, and that you know, we have certain privileges as white people when it comes to that. There's a way that, like, if I were a woman of color living in Idaho, I wouldn't be open. I don't think. Probably not.
Right. Just letting that sink in, you know, like, and thank God you are talking about this, because it's important, and Yeah.
I looked forward to that, like quarter or half a glass of wine a week.
Of course you are.
Here and there
Of course you are.
when I was pregnant. I don't drink anymore though, because it doesn't agree with me anymore, and cannabis has just taken that place for me.
Right.
Yeah.
But just for clarity's sake, we did have the question if weed was good in pregnancy and in breastfeeding,
Yes.
and it's a no, isn't it?
The answer is we don't know. About 2.5% of the THC that you ingest goes into breast milk,
Right.
but we don't know what the effect that 2.5% of the THC does. Now, there are cannabinoids in breast milk. There are literally cannabinoids that the mother makes in her own body and transfers to her baby in breast milk.
Wow.
So it's just like another very similar molecule, but it's higher levels, obviously, than are naturally produced. So
What are cannabinoids? Just so we have a working definition.
yeah, I mean, the basic components of cannabis. So THC is the most famous cannabinoid, right? Tetrahydrocannabinol. And then CBD is the second most well-known at this point. So they're just, like the molecules that are in some cases psychoactive, in some cases not, because CBD is not considered psychoactive, but
Right.
it does alter your system. It absolutely affects the human body. And then there are dozens, if like about 100 other cannabinoids, actually quite a few, most of them quite minor, although we're starting to isolate some of them and synthesize them together to get larger amounts and seeing what they do. Like THCV, for instance, is a cannabinoid that, unlike THC, is supposed to suppress appetite. So THC is supposed to stimulate appetite. THCV is supposed to suppress it. So these cannabinoids can really work differently.
And there are already cannabinoids in breast milk without a mom having had smoked anything.
Yes, the ones that we naturally create, endogenous cannabinoids.
Wow.
We create, 2 different kinds of cannabinoids that are circulating freely through our systems. And there's a theory, actually, that certain disease states arise from an endocannabinoid deficiency, an endogenous deficiency. Some people don't make as much. So actually, one of the cannabinoids, endogenous cannabinoids, is anandamide, which is what you feel with that runner's high.
Oh, amazing. Right, because it is a high.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And Ananda comes from the Sanskrit word for bliss. Anandamide. It was actually coined by an Israeli scientist, Raphael Meshulam.
Nice.
Meshulam. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I always felt a little high after breastfeeding, actually.
Oh.
Which a lot of people do.
Yeah,
they say it's oxytocin, but it's not cannabinoid related.
I don't think so in that case because, not because. Just I don't think so.
Okay, just checking.
Do other parents shame your choices to use plant medicine or educate your own children on the topic?
I don't know if I've been extremely fortunate or the way that I present it is comforting or reassuring to people. But honestly, I educate, I talk about responsible use, I talk about keeping kids safe, all of that stuff up front so that, I never just like wave the green flag around and be like, woohoo, weed, everybody.
Not yet.
Not yet, exactly. So I have a whole chapter in the book actually about talking to your kids specifically, and I break it down by age because I think that's really important. And the message is the same, but it gets more complex, obviously, as they get older, age appropriate. And then in terms of talking to other parents, I have not had a whole lot of judgment or stigma put on me. Maybe I'm just slipping under that radar, or maybe, it's just the way that I present it. But I really do go out of my way to talk about it as something that I use for wellness, that enhances, my life in a lot of ways. I talk about migraines because I do get migraines, and cannabis helps tremendously with those. Whereas, NSAIDs and all those, other pain medications really messed up my digestion, so I can't do them as much anymore.
Wow. I'm just like sort of in awe of your mission, and how it's taken you. What do you hope for when it comes to cannabis? And, where do you see yourself sort of speaking on this topic? Like, where can we get more of this education out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's so the book was my initial contribution to that space. And now with my platform on Instagram, what I'm trying to do is basically educate, raise awareness, and destigmatize, showing that you can be a responsible parent, a good and loving and present parent, show up for your career, do, a boss job at your career, and be a cannabis lover at the same time. Just to show those three things coexisting, I think, good mom, good parent, good partner, succeeding in your work and cannabis consuming. I think that it's just that is cognitive dissonance for some people, putting those three things together.
It's so interesting because I have two amazing dad friends. Amazing. They are so special, handsome and patient and fun and loving and responsible, and they earn a living and they're potheads, We don't think twice about it.
Yeah, I know. The stigmas are really different for moms. It's funny. Yeah, I get comments sometimes what about the weed dads? We need something. And I'm okay, well, maybe, but...
Do we? Do we need something for the weed dads? Or are they fine?
Yeah.
What is the difference, do you see, this stigma-wise or cognitive dissonance-wise? Because doesn't it make total sense to you that there are these dads that I know who are creative and awesome, and no one thinks twice about them being high all day, every day?
Just a fun dad.
Just a fun dad.
Yeah, if it was the exact same thing, but a mom, and you said that she's high all day, I think people would be like, oh, really?
Yeah.
I think mothers are held up to a different moral standard than other humans, We have this notion that moms should be, completely nurturing, present, and obviously you can do that with cannabis, but people don't understand that. There's this purity ideal, I think, that we have around motherhood.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Which is just not attainable, actually.
It's not attainable.
For anyone.
Right, exactly. It's as soon as you become a mother, you don't have... you don't have all of your interests and appetites? No, you do.
Well, I think you talk about the war on drugs being, a way to... it being racially motivated. But that same system would love to keep women as second-class citizens, no matter what their skin color is, right? That same patriarchal system is pretty damning of women.
It is.
Isn't it?
It is, yeah. There's just narrower set of acceptable behavior, I think, for women and for men, and then it narrows even more when you're a mother.
And so... I did find you in this sort of, I don't know, maybe there were 4 or 5 of you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all over the country, there are these, you call them canna moms. Tell me more.
Yeah.
What is this wave of human?
Instagram has been a really interesting place to connect with other canna moms and have this canna mom community. There are some canna moms who have a ton of followers. My friend Bianca, high society mama, she's got 52,000 followers or something, and she absolutely, every day she's out there saying, F the stigma. I'm thriving, I'm happy, I'm a good mom, this is my life, basically. And people have really resonated with that. And women from all different parts of the world. So she's in Michigan. I know a bunch of women in California, Oregon.
Right.
East Coast now is popping up, getting hotter around here too. And I think that, we're all in our own ways just repeating the same message. You can do this responsibly. There's a lot about the legal marketplace that I think will appeal to women that didn't appeal about the legacy market, the illicit market.
Right.
Not knowing what you're getting, not knowing how potent it is, or how it was grown or any of that stuff. And also only having the choice of bud or flower, right? Usually on the legacy market. Now you don't have to smoke it at all. There's a ton of ways to consume and you can precisely dose, which is so helpful for moms, so helpful for me. I wasn't just going to smoke a bowl of something and see how it landed and then try to parent my kids. I need to know what I'm consuming and what its effects will be. So that's a huge advantage of the legal marketplace. And this community is growing. It's new, but it's pretty exciting actually.
Is it not around the world? I hear that people are popping up around the country, but what about the rest of about the rest of the globe? How are they doing about all this?
Well, certainly Canada, because they federally legalized
Yeah.
in 2018. And so I do know a bunch of Canadian Canada moms who say that they don't have any legal worries, but the stigma is still there for moms. So they're working on that. They're fighting that. Here, we're working on stigma and legalization still.
Right.
And then around the world, I do hear from women. I hear from women in the UK, in Australia, in South America, a couple different spots. And I just basically hear things like, I wish I had that access, or, or I do have that access and I just feel terrible about it. I felt terrible about it until now. I thought I was a bad mom for consuming. Now I'm starting to look at that differently.
But like, what if someone was on Prozac? God bless Prozac. I mean, it saved so many lives. Like,
Yeah.
what would we ever? I mean, I guess we did stigmatize that
For a bit, yeah.
for a bit. We did. I mean, remember Brooke Shields? That was
Yes.
terrible. Thank God we're on the other side of that. I mean, maybe that was the beta version of accepting medicine from the earth.
How is a mom or a person even supposed to travel with their medicine if you can't just openly travel with it?
Oh, right.
It does. It makes it less accessible to use as medicine or to rely on as medicine.
To rely on
You
daily or
still can't
weekly
fly with cannabis, even though TSA is not specifically looking for it. I just don't recommend it. And yeah, so that's, yeah. I mean, what I would love to see, what I really want around that is to actually free the plant. And that means like allow for home cultivation, allow people to develop a relationship with the plant medicine, because, if you only get your product in a tube or something, or in, some kind of form that doesn't look anything like the plant, it's maybe, I don't know, I'm a hippie. So I think that there's just more like wholeness and, positive intention setting if you actually like have a physical relationship with the plant, and that it doesn't need to be this huge commercial transaction. It can be something that, it can be just something like an herb that you grow at home and use as needed.
Do you grow your own?
I don't, because the penalties are very high where I live.
Wow. Did you in California?
No, I've never had the chance to cultivate, actually. But I've been on farms and I've worked with the plant, but I haven't had my own actual plant and grow at home.
In my psychedelic research, I did see that this magazine Double Blind will talk about how you can plant and grow your own mushrooms.
Yes. I write about that for them sometimes.
But are the penalties not very high for that?
So,
I guess because it's a mushroom?
Gray area. It is specifically decriminalized. Psilocybin is specifically decriminalized in certain places, right? So in certain cities in California, the whole state of Oregon, in DC, they just did a decriminalized campaign with the last election. So it's happening. It's like in pockets all around. So there's that. You can buy the spores online to cultivate your own mushrooms because it's actually legal in some places. And what was the rest of your question?
I was just wondering if, why it's legal to grow mushrooms, but not.
Right. It isn't legal really to grow mushrooms if you're in a place where it's not decriminalized or not legal. But you can get the mushroom growing kit in one place, and you can get the spores for scientific or research purposes in another place, and then you can put them together.
Right. That would be like a lot more financially smart, right? Because it could get expensive.
I've done it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think it would just be hard for you to get in trouble necessarily for just growing and consuming at home unless there is some sort of public declaration of that.
I'm shocked to hear that you would get in such trouble if you. Well, I guess because your public persona is so clear.
Yeah.
It's that if you were growing it at home, that would be unsafe or not ill-advised. Right. Wow.
Do you have any advice for how they can mindfully, if they are going the consumer route, they're going to a dispensary, how can they make informed decisions once they're inside and not get caught up in there's a lot going on in a dispensary? So
For sure. I love that question, and I dedicate a lot of space in the book to that, basically because it can be overwhelming walking into, I feel like a kid in a candy store when I walk into a dispensary, and it's like, but so many products, how do you choose? So it's helpful to, do a little reading or research ahead of time, know what you're looking for, because it's not one size fits all. So what do you want from cannabis? Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to just relax? Do you want to replace alcohol with it for, see how that works for you? Are you looking for, a way to focus and get more creative with your work? There are so many different uses. So I would start by asking yourself those questions. And then, of course, how do you want to consume? Are you comfortable with smoking? If not, there's all kinds of other consumption. So inhalation is the quickest onset, but you don't have to smoke. You can vaporize or vape. So vape is like the liquid juice, the THC distillate in there. But vaporizing, I recommend because it's using whole flower in a device that doesn't combust it, so it doesn't light it on fire. It just heats it enough to create a vapor that you inhale. So it's a nice taste, and it's that quick onset with inhalation. So anyway, that's a side note. Decide how you want to consume. So are you comfortable smoking or inhaling? Do you want to eat it? Do you want to drink it? Do you want to rub it on your body? Do you want to put it somewhere else?
Do you?
Do you? Yeah, you do.
For you, I guess.
So there's that. And then, of course, just, once you get there, you can bring the book with you. Think about the wellness uses that you might want to use it for. Think about, also talk to bud tenders. Some know a lot and some don't, so it is a little bit hit or miss, but hopefully you'll get some good advice there. And then always make sure you understand the dosing of the product that you get. And that's the big thing.
The dosing, I mean, it is a little experimental, right? You'd have to try it and then, parent at the same time if parenting is what's on the schedule for the day, right?
Right. So that's why we have the mantra, start low and go slow, because it's, and I talk about a method for finding your sweet spot in my book, because you do have to start lower probably than you're going to be comfortable with. Maybe the first couple times you won't really get to where you want to be, and you're like, what's the point of this? Maybe I should double it. No.
Double is not the next step?
Double is not how you do it. It's an incremental dosing. It's different with THC and CBD, but for THC, 2.5 milligrams, if it's an edible, can be a low dose for many people. If people are especially sensitive to THC, you can even start with 1 milligram. 1 milligram is so little, but some people feel it. Some people have to go all the way up to 20, 25, 50 milligrams to really feel it. So there's quite a range.
Does it depend on weight?
To a degree, but it also depends on a liver enzyme.
She's so cool.
Yes.
So because when you ingest cannabis, it turns it from delta 9 THC to 11 hydroxy THC, which is metabolized a little differently and felt a little differently. That's why many people with edibles get that body high more than they get the mental high. So
right.
Yeah, different products, different effects. So I hope that answers the question. Think about what you're looking for. Think about how you want to consume it. Just keep asking questions. Understand your dose. Start low, go slow.
In your most recent post that I saw, you were saying that you're taking some time away from the hustle and stepping more into your feminine. And it really resonated with me. The first time Laura and I spoke, we were just talking about, and maybe it's in the air, maybe it's what we've all been through in the last couple of years, but it's been a slog. And I think if you're in a female body, identifying female, there might be a call to feel more feminine. And I'm curious what that means to you.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's kind of essentialist, of course, to say masculine and feminine, but I say it because we all, I believe that we have these energies mixed within, and, so it's not purely biological, but yeah, I've been operating in this masculine, go, 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 push forward, strive, get it out there way, which is great. I think that energy was needed to to sort of launch my book into the world and out myself as a canna mom, which is basically, what I've done. And when I was writing about cannabis, I wasn't necessarily talking about my own consumption.
I mean, as I said, it must take a lot of courage and a lot of balls, right? We would call it balls to put yourself out there in this way, to claim your right to be yourself.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah, Yeah. So, and I think the Instagram culture also can be pretty like go, 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 push forward and keep producing content and all that stuff, which can be fun and creative. And I can be in that flow too. But if I'm not feeling that flow for a little bit, I know that I need to take a step back, because my creativity as a writer really comes from reflection, and it comes from time, away from all of the inputs and all of the screens. I have to have all that stuff to know what I want to think, what subjects are interesting and what other people are thinking, but to know what I think and to produce something that I feel good about, I just need to kind of, set some boundaries. So that's that feminine flow I'm trying to jump into right now.
So you're going to set some boundaries around like Instagram, or is that
the
intention?
Just all social media for a little bit. And, I think I'm trying to step into a little more of a like, what's, a receiving mode. Like if people come to me, I am happy to respond, right? I don't necessarily need to like chase and push everything. But I'm sure I'll be back in that like masculine
Chase
flow
and
at
push.
some point too.
Well, that's fun also.
It is.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm really feeling that a more receptive mode also.
Is it the weather too? Is it winter for you?
Isn't that amazing that you say that? And here we literally went out and found you to come all the way to New York City to like teach us, like your ways to, It's amazing that you cast that spell, and here it is manifest.
The universe provides.
The universe does provide. Like, I have to trust that, because, I can get so in my head about making things fall into place and knowing what the steps are. And when I have a sense of the big picture, but I also give myself a chance to step back and be in that flow, it works so much better.
Yeah.
Or to play between the two energies, like we were talking about.
I'm wondering what it was like writing the book.
I wrote most of this during the first couple months of lockdown.
Oh, with 2 kids at home? How?
Well, okay, serendipitous, sort of, I guess, in that my husband was unemployed at the time. Mm-hmm. We had moved, and he had stayed in San Diego to keep working, and I had moved with the kids, and finally we're like, okay, this long-distance thing is too hard. Like, the kids need us, need you, need us to be together. So he quit his job and came to us and was still looking for a job when the pandemic hit. So he took over parenting. He literally did breakfast, lunch, and dinner, homeschool, dog walks. Like, he supported me big time to let this happen. I wrote maybe a third of it probably before the lockdown, because for the book proposal and stuff, you've got to have sample chapters.
Yeah.
But the majority of it was those first few months, and it was incredibly intense because we were all living through this anxious, really, wild time. Yeah, there you go. and at this, so I was consuming all that news, and I was consuming all the cannabis information and doing all these cannabis interviews.
I was consuming all that news, and I was consuming all that cannabis.
That too. To balance it out.
Yeah.
But I was also working, I was writing 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours. I was really, really focused. And a couple of times in there, I did have to rent an Airbnb, sanitize it from, top to bottom, because we didn't know what the hell was going on then, and we thought you needed to do that. And just stay away from my family, literally not in the same house in order to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your favorite part of the book?
So it is somewhat autobiographical in the sense that I tell my own story, and I weave it in throughout, but mostly it's in the beginning, the first chapter. And I enjoyed writing that, even though there's actually some hard stuff in there. You can read it later and just tell me what you think. What is my favorite part of the book? I think preface intro chapter 1 and the last chapter, because they're big picture.
Yeah.
It's about the vision, why is this important and where do we go from here? And I actually think it's important to embrace cannabis. Not everyone needs to, obviously, but I think that we can help shape this new industry in really positive ways if we are educated about how to do that, how to make good choices, buying weed from people who were negatively impacted by the war on drugs, who get legacy licenses, social equity licenses. So, buy weed from women, buy weed from BIPOC people.
Wow.
Yeah. And also there's an environmental impact to cannabis. indoor versus outdoor grown, huge debate in the cannabis world. And generally, I support sun grown if it can be done in a good climate. You don't want to do sun grown in Minnesota or something because it's not going to work. Only hemp would work there, but the high THC cultivars wouldn't. But
I love you.
But I think, if people have the tools to make good choices, we can get more environmentally friendly, just a greener industry,
Yeah.
and a more equitable industry. And I am an optimist, so that's the way I see it, and I want to encourage people. Obviously, big money's in cannabis too, and there are all kinds of regulatory issues and environmental issues, and it's not a perfect industry. But I also think that if more people embraced plant medicine, not just cannabis, maybe it's psilocybin too, maybe it's some other ones, we could maybe evolve our consciousness a little bit, connect better with others, be more at home in ourselves. That would make all the difference, right?
I think so. I'm also really taken by the fact that it's a mom-centered book, and the reason why I'm taken with it, not only because I'm a mom, this is like a mom-curious podcast, but because it feels deeply feminist.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just writing about weed for weed's sake. You're saying, like, you deserve it too, babe.
Yeah.
You deserve to feel good. You don't have to be everyone's martyr. In fact, please don't be.
Please don't be. Yeah, you're not serving your children even by being a martyr. That's my perspective. I mean, I'm not going to tell other people what to do, but absolutely empowering women is a huge motivation for this. I want women to feel empowered to make, conscious choices about their health and the way that they, relax and or medicate.
Mm. And like those, the clan of canna moms that I've been like so, taken with and tickled by. But are you in conversation with the weed accounts in general, or is it specific to moms? It's really sort of interesting to me that we'd have to drill down so specifically to not even just women, not girls, but if you're a mother, here's your permission slip almost,
right.
To engage in this holistic healing plant,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting community. I would say that I am connected to some of the bigger weed accounts and weed brands and things like that, but I absolutely gravitate toward women owned and and or BIPOC owned. I want to, I just want to uplift people who need the upliftment, who need that in the way that I talk about cannabis, in the way that I encourage or promote, the mindful consumption of cannabis.
Do you use it as like a bonding tool between you and your husband now?
Well, he doesn't consume.
Wow!
I know.
Plot
Funny,
twist.
right?
Plot twist.
Yeah, he's all done.
Closer to the mic. Closer to
the mic. Okay. But I think that it's helped our marriage. I think the perfect combo is I smoke weed and he doesn't.
Nice.
We're closer. We connect better. It's great.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, and like give them a couple of years and their kids are going to be smoking with them. So
Definitely. And how will you...
More than a couple, but yes.
More than a couple. 25 years, let's say. Wait, that's how old they have to be. So 13.
13 more years.
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, got it. I did the math. I'm listening.
Did you smoke while you wrote the book?
Oh, yeah. But not... simultaneously in my life, but not really while writing. THC in very low doses is a performance enhancer. For me, there's a lot of talk right now. Is cannabis a performance enhancer?
Depends what performance.
Exactly. And so somebody was like, for what? Watching TV? Or
Okay.
No, it is a performance enhancer in microdoses for me. So sometimes I will, but mainly if I'm writing, it's CBD or another cannabinoid, CBG. It helps me with my migraines. THC is more of my muse and be creative and think and ponder, even if it's also work related. But I can consume some THC, take a walk, and then ideas come, and I take out my phone and write down note down all my ideas. So it's good for creativity. It's good for kind of big picture thinking. It's also really good for transitions for me, like
Tell me
letting
more.
go. Yeah, like moving from work brain to mom brain, from mom brain to sexy brain later on, that sort of thing. Those moments to because it's actually a ritual for me to consume, taking my, my materials, my glass, my plant material, grinding it up, putting it in the, going to my spot, putting on the air purifier. It's like, it's a thing.
Yeah. It's you time.
Yeah, it's totally. And I consciously say, okay, I'm letting go of my emails and my work to-do lists, and I'm shifting into the mode where I can do homework, not do, but help with homework, or make dinner with my daughter or something. And just those transitions are really helpful.
Where can we find you? Where can we find your book?
Yes, I am at Danielle Brand on Instagram, and that's where I'm the most active around the book. I'm also on other platforms, though, and my book is available anywhere you buy books. Like, I don't need to say the big A name, but you can buy it there. But you can also ask your local bookstore to carry it, which is a wonderful way to help them and authors, or anywhere else you buy your books online.
Did we miss anything?
Talking to kids, partners. So why don't I tell you what the chapters are, the titles are, or the
Let's do it.
Yeah, so that if anything sparks your interest.
Sure.
There's the basics of cannabis. There's Beyond Reefer Madness. There's history. There's science, specifically cannabis and parenting, talking to kids about cannabis, when things go wrong, sex, social life.
Mom curious that want to give it another shot or want to give it a shot for the first time.
I want to give it a shot. I'm not saying I'm not going to give it a shot.
Right.
I'm saying it was not really my thing. It's not my thing. Yeah, I get really paranoid. I get really anxious.
Well, I mean, the first thing is prevention, preventing that from happening just by starting low and going slow. Like, if you really do that, it's hard to get to a place where, you'll be uncomfortable. You will, because it's so incremental. And CBD is good for balancing out the anxiety of THC. So I always recommend, most flower strains these days are high THC, low CBD. They're not very balanced. And so if you want CBD, you really need to seek it out in some other form, whether it's smokable, which there is smokable CBD, or a tincture, or, edible, something like that. So that will go a long way. And then, I have a little bit about what to do if you get too damn high. There's all kinds of strategies, but basically, it passes. Just don't overdo it. The vast majority of things that go wrong with cannabis is from either, having crappy stuff because it was grown with a bunch of pesticides or whatever, or just taking too much. So, find your sweet spot, and it's pretty smooth sailing for most people. Even if they don't love it and don't want to do it again, it's not going to be a terrible experience if they are incremental.
I have someone who does the microdoses for me, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, that's the only way.
So it's always consistent.
Yeah.
So it's always consistent.
Oh,
Yeah.
But I mean, I have done it where I grind it up, but that
Anybody's
that got me
guess.
into trouble. That was pre-babies, but that got me into trouble. The one time I had an agent meeting and I was like, "Ooh, that definitely went wrong. That they're not signing me." And honestly, I can't blame them. It's just a little too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
So we also say use it in low stakes moments, maybe not when you're about to go to a call. But anyway, So if women, moms, potential moms are worried about their ability to parent fully while experimenting with cannabis, then just start when you're not actively parenting. Start when your kids are asleep for the night and there's another parent there who can help out. There are lots of ways to acclimate yourself to it so that it's a reliable feeling. Because I can microdose during the day, very easily hit my sweet spot without going over into that. I'm just tired and I want to, have some cookie dough ice cream.
Totally. Yeah, a lot of friends I know, it's their bedtime ritual. Mm-hmm. And it's bonding for them and their partner, which is really sweet. Really sweet.
It is. It's bonding for me with my kids actually at bedtime because I'm so much more patient. I don't want to just like rush through it and get the hell out of there, you know? Like I snuggle, I get into bed with each of them and they still want to do that, which I love.
Oh my God, that's so nice.
And we just, snuggle for a few minutes and they sometimes get really chatty at that time and tell me about their day in ways that like when I pick them up from school and say, how was your day? Fine, whatever, let's get home.
Yeah, like right before bed, I know it's kind of amazing, like in that like sleep-wake consciousness, like all of a sudden, even my 4.5-year-old would be like, hey, mommy, and super chatty, like burst of like, I love you, I just wanted to tell you how much I love you, and like, did you know that 6 + 6 = 12? You know, it's so sweet.
That is so
when
sweet.
You can enjoy it.
When you
don't
enjoy
have
it.
somewhere to be.
Yeah, when you're in the headspace to enjoy it.
What do you think is a good amount of hours if it was someone that was like a new doing a test run? What's like a good amount of time to give them?
So it does vary a bit, but inhalation typically is 1 to 3 hours for the outside. Like if you've really smoked a lot or you're really sensitive to THC. Edibles take half an hour to an hour and a half, even 2 hours to kick in.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
You guys, it's terrifying to me. I'm going to be straight up.
But if you start letting them slow, the kicking in is so mellow. It's so mellow.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to be afraid. But I get it.
I'm very afraid.
I was too. That's why, I got a vape pen when I first started. I got a vape pen that literally dispensed 2.5 milligrams of inhalable, which is so little THC. And I was like, what's going to happen? 2.5 milligrams. And
nothing happened.
It was chill. Yeah.
Here we are. A book happened. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Danielle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daniela. It is such a pleasure to be here and to meet you.
Oh my gosh. It's like my honor to have you and to have your book. Yeah. Weed Mom, guys. Check it out.